What's up, everyone? This is Terry with College Football Stop. Bring you another show today. Today's Friday, October 27th, 2023, the day before game day. Man, I'm super excited about this weekend of college football. Um, I did a little looking through. I mean, there's not a ton of like super exciting games. However, college football always brings upsets. So there's a couple games I want to talk about. Obviously, we got a little update on the Michigan situation. New details coming out every single day. And then I want to get into some bold predictions for this week. Hot takes, what I like to call them, for this Ohio State versus Wisconsin game. And just kind of like a preview and a little stat dive on what Wisconsin's looking like and the players that Ohio State should look out for from the Wisconsin side of the field. So let's go ahead and get into it, man. I want to start with the update on what's going on with the Michigan sign stealing, all kinds of shit they got going on. Again, this whole situation is just crazy. It keeps getting crazier and crazier every day. One of the things that came out yesterday was that apparently TCU got tipped off in advance that Michigan was going to be stealing their signs, and TCU had time. You get like 15 bowl practices or whatever. TCU had time to go in and adjust all their signs, and apparently they kept the old signs in to throw Michigan off. So I think that's just genius by them. Nobody thought TCU was going to beat Michigan, and honestly, like the way that they beat them, it looked really weird. If you look at Michigan all year, nobody was scoring on them, nobody was hanging with them, and then you get to the TCU game, and TCU kind of put it on them, scored 50 points on them, on supposedly one of the best defenses in college football, which now we're kind of finding out that I don't necessarily think they were one of the best defenses in college football. I think that they were just put in the best place and had the perfect defense to counter what the offense was doing. But I thought that was super funny when I saw that, because TCU, like I said, they were not supposed to beat Michigan. No one picked TCU to beat Michigan. No one picked them to go to the national championship. And I think that Michigan probably hung their hat a little too much on this whole sign stealing shit, and they got themselves in trouble. It's funny because there's pictures coming out of Connor Stallions from the TCU game, and all the other games you see him on the sideline. He's looking all happy and all that stuff. Switch back to the TCU game. He's red faced. He's pictures of him holding the TCU signs in his hands, with 3 or 4 different like laminated sheets. So I mean, I do think that they scouted TCU. That was like the original joke, was like, oh, the only team they didn't scout was the one they lost to. But I think they did. I think they just scouted everybody that could potentially play down the road. TCU was smart, and they also had time. That's one of the biggest things I saw. This morning on Twitter, the guys from College Football Nerds made the point that TCU had 15 days to change their signs and make adjustments, 15 practices. But if you send a team like last year, Ohio State played Maryland the week before they played Michigan, right? So let's say, I'm not saying they did because I don't know, but let's say Michigan had a scout at the Maryland game and they were recording Ohio State's sideline. 1 week it's tough to change every single sign and to make changes like that, especially when you're preparing for the biggest game of the year. I think that my goal is not to make people feel sorry for Ohio State, because like it is what it is. They cheated to win, and I mean, I think that more details are going to come out today that are going to be even more, I guess, damning, or even more problematic than what we've already seen. Because supposedly, again, I don't know if this is going to happen or not, but I did see something about potentially Michigan was stealing Ohio State's practice film too. So that hasn't been like an official report, so don't take that for what it is. But apparently that is supposed to be released today, and if it is, that's probably even bigger than going to the games and recording just to steal the signs. So I don't know. We'll see how it plays out. I'm an Ohio State fan, and I'm going to stick to the fact that I do not think that Michigan can beat Ohio State with Jim Harbaugh without cheating. And that's just my opinion. A lot of people say like, oh, Ohio State got dominated because of what the final score was. Every single one of those games, late, at least halfway through the fourth quarter, the last 2 years, it was a one-score game. So I don't want to hear that bullshit about dominating. at the end of the game, they obviously made the right play and they countered Ohio State perfectly. But while I mean, of course they're going to make the right play if they know what Ohio State's doing. So I don't know. I've been focusing more on Ohio State with this because one, I'm a salty Ohio State fan who lost to Michigan 2 times in a row, and two, I don't think that we should have lost those games. That's just simple. That's just how I feel about it. So, but that was really all the information that came out. Or actually, no, there was one more thing. There was one more thing. So, there was the speculation that Michigan helped another team uh, be a team that was a potential playoff berth team. A lot of fans are saying, and this is not something that's came out officially either, but a lot of fans are saying that that team was Tennessee, and so basically Jim Harbaugh has some ties to some of the staff members on South Carolina's team. Last year, South Carolina was not a very good team, and then when they played Tennessee, they beat them like 62-30 or something like that. And Tennessee was a potential playoff berth team. At that point, they had only lost to Georgia, and they were, I mean, they still wouldn't have made it, I don't think, I guess, unless they won the rest of their games. But in that game, Tennessee's quarterback even got hurt. So, I mean, if that play, I don't know what the play was, but if that play was like a design quarterback run and they knew that that's what it was, and he ended up getting hurt on that shit is just messed up, man. I hate that we're even having to deal with this. But again, I don't know if that was the actual team that Michigan helped, but just know that there is speculation that they helped the team. And apparently, like, South Carolina completely changed up their strategy in this game too. Like, they came out and had wristbands on for the first time all year, so they were just checking into the right defense the whole time. I don't know. But if that is the case, again, that's just the plot thickening. If you're out here sharing this information with other teams and you're getting whole other colleges and organizations involved, I just think that this is going to go deep. And I don't know, man. I don't know what's going to happen. I can see anything from something happening this year all the way to kind of it being nothing this year until next year, and then something big happens. Or again, I don't know because I'm not the NCAA. I'm not the one who's making the punishment. But I do think that something is going to happen from this. And I still think that something will happen this year. I think that it just may end up being like a suspension, or certain coaches may get suspended. We'll see how it plays out. We'll see what new details come out today. And I'll share those with you guys on Monday when we pick back up on the show. So moving on from that, I want to get into this Ohio State versus Wisconsin stuff. Obviously, this is a big game, in my opinion, because Ohio State is going to Wisconsin at night. And when you're playing a team like Wisconsin, they could beat someone at any time. And also, this is a matchup that is never usually a blowout. Like last year, Ohio State played Wisconsin at home and they did blow them out. However, if you look at this game historically, it's not a blowout. There's a lot of close games in there, and Ohio State typically does win. There's been a couple times where Wisconsin's upset Ohio State. I don't think that they're going to be on upset alert this week, though. I think this Ohio State defense is too good, and I think that defense travels. When you go play an away game, your defense can still make plays because your offense is going to be the one that's having to deal with the crowd. Your offense is going to be the one that could get a little bit out of whack in terms of like snap counts and false starts and making changes to the plays and all that good stuff because of the crowd being crazy, which the Wisconsin crowd is known for that. But the defense is not. The defense is not going to be in that situation. The defense is going to be able to make the checks they need to make. And I think that this defense is just really good this year. Jim Knowles is putting his players in really good positions. And we have some freak athletes out there that are just out there doing their thing. So I expect for this game to not be close. I'll get into the score a little bit later in the show here, or my score prediction at least. I do want to move on to one more thing that's national. I just want to talk about some games this week, and then I'm going to spin it back to the Ohio State-Wisconsin game to finish the show off here. So a couple games that I was looking at nationally that I think are interesting. So the first one is going to be at noon. Actually, two of them at noon. So Oklahoma plays at Kansas. Now, Oklahoma is undefeated. They are in the running to be a playoff team. Obviously, they already beat Texas. They're probably going to end up having to play Texas again in the Big 12 championship. That could go, either way because the first time it was a really close game. but they have to go play at Kansas. Now, I don't think Kansas is a really good team. However, in the Big 12, all the time you see teams that are not good teams showing up for one game and getting upsets. So that's a game that is intriguing to me. We'll see how it plays out. I'm excited to check that one out. Indiana goes to Penn State this weekend. So the reason why this one's intriguing to me is just because it's Penn State, one of the top big three in the Big Ten. And they get a chance to have redemption after their loss to Ohio State. I look for them to make some changes within their offensive scheme, hopefully, because I think that Drew Aller is a really talented quarterback, but I don't think that the way that they're deploying their offense is best for him. I think they need to run the ball a little bit more, and that way it can open up some play action and give him some guys open because their wide receivers are not phenomenal, and they're not just going to go out and route people up constantly. So if they can just deploy those running backs, that Katron Allen and Nicholas Singleton, and get them a ton of carries and then work play action off of that, Penn State can still be a really good team. And I mean, honestly, if something were to happen, like if Penn State beat Michigan and then Ohio State beat Michigan, it's not completely out of the idea, or out of the, what am I trying to say? It's not completely out of reach that Penn State could be a playoff team. You could be a one-loss playoff team from the Big Ten that doesn't win the Big Ten championship. Ohio State did it last year. All right, now obviously the way that the game fell, they played the last game of the year against Michigan, and then some other teams had to lose. So obviously that, those things would have to happen for them. However, if you're a Penn State fan, I don't think you give up on the season, man. You guys need to go beat Michigan. Penn State played a close game with Michigan the last time they played at Happy Valley, and that was in 2021. Michigan was cheating then. I mean, I think that Penn State can beat them. I think that they have the defense to put J.J. McCarthy kind of in a blender, especially when they don't know everything that you're going to be doing on defense. So, again, I look forward to that game coming up in a couple weeks. But if you're a Penn State fan, keep your hopes up. I know you lost to Ohio State. I get it. And, I mean, I truly just believe as an Ohio State fan that Ohio State's a really good team this year. And losing to them as a Penn State fan is not something to hang your head down on. Just go out and beat Michigan's ass, and then hopefully you can get in the playoffs with Ohio State. In the airport, Evans in the chat here. In the airport, killing time. Hell yeah, man. Thanks for watching, bro. Hey, I've never been on a plane before, man. That's something I've never done in my life. Everywhere I've went, I've drove. So maybe someday. We'll see. All right, so I'm talking about some other national games here. There's a Oregon plays at Utah this week. So this is a big game too, in my opinion, because both of these teams are 6-1, and neither one of these teams are technically knocked out of the playoffs at this point. Obviously, Oregon lost to who did they lose to? Washington. Oregon lost to Washington in a close game, right? But Washington just played kind of a stinker in their last game, and both of these teams could be potential Pac-12 champions if they win out, and ultimately they'll end up playing probably Washington in the Pac-12 championship. So that's a good one. That's number 8 versus number 13, and it's on at 3:30 tomorrow. Maybe a good one to check out. Utah is obviously one of those teams that's I would say kind of like a Wisconsin or an Iowa of the Pac-12, where they could beat anybody. But I would say they're a little bit better too, because I think that Urban Meyer recently said Kyle Whittingham, the coach at Utah, is the best coach in college football. And I mean, I kind of agree with him. He's got Utah above what their ceiling should be, and he's held them there for a long time. So Utah could upset Oregon. They're so similarly matched that I don't know how big of an upset that would be considered, though. And then another game I wanted to talk about was the Georgia versus Florida game. That one is always a good one. It's a big time rivalry. Those teams both show up to play. So, I mean, I expect Georgia to win this game, but I 100% think that this could be a lot closer than what people think. Georgia's been playing a lot of teams close this year. They haven't been completely dominant. And, I mean, I just think that with everyone being up for that game, with it being a rivalry game, I do think that could present some problems for Georgia. I don't expect them to lose, though. If I had to pick, I would say I would pick Georgia to win that game. And then let's see here. I'm just looking at the games going on this week for like the top 25 teams. BYU plays at Texas. BYU is 5-2. So, I mean, Let me see. I'm just looking at who BYU played, who they lost to, and whatnot. Yeah, I mean, I don't think BYU is really going to be a threat to Texas. I mean, looking at some of their games, BYU won 14-0 against Sam Houston. uh, they beat Cincinnati, beat Texas Tech. I mean, they could make it. It could be a game. They also kind of got blown out by TCU, so I doubt it. Especially being at Texas, I think Texas is another team to watch out for a potential college football playoff team. Man, like I know they lost to Oklahoma, but if Texas doesn't screw up and lose another game, they get to see Oklahoma again. And the college football playoff committee loves that shit where a team loses to a team and then comes back and plays them later in the year and beats them. They eat that shit up, and I think Texas could easily end up being a playoff team. And honestly, that's really kind of one of the teams that I don't want to see in the playoffs. When I say that, I mean like if Ohio State was in the playoffs, I would. There are a lot of other teams I would rather play than Texas because I think that with Steve Sarkisian being the offensive mastermind that he is, and their defense being as good as it has been this year, I think that Texas could put together a hell of a game plan in a playoff and could make some noise. So, and obviously, with not obviously, but the one thing with Texas right now though is that Quinn Ewers is hurt, and I don't know if he's coming back this year or not. But I know that Quinn Ewers being out is a big hit to them, and they have I think their quarterback is Malik Murphy. Let me see here. Let me make sure I get his name right. Yeah, so they have Malik Murphy who's going to be starting for them this week. Obviously, they have Arch Manning out there as a freshman. A lot of their fan base wanted to see him play, but I mean, typically, if as a true freshman, no matter how highly you were rated, you're not going to be ready to play quarterback at the college level, especially not in a situation where you were not the starting quarterback and then the quarterback gets hurt and you have to step in. Usually, that's not going to be a freshman to step into that role because they haven't been getting those one reps all year to develop into the player that they could be by the end of the year. So those are just some of the games around the country that I think are interesting that I think will be worth giving a watch to. Obviously, there's more games, but um, there's also quite a bit of people I think are on or not quite a bit, but there's a few teams that are on off weeks this week that are like key teams to watch, like Alabama, Michigan, all that good stuff. I think those two teams are on off weeks. So again, we'll have every single weekend to me of college football is interesting. We only get 15 of them a year. Obviously, the bowl games you get a little bit more, but I don't know. I'm excited to see what happens, and hopefully, it's a crazy weekend like it usually is. All right, so I want to move on from the national landscape now and just kind of dive into some hot takes or bold predictions for this week's Ohio State versus Wisconsin game. So Ryan Day came out on his I think it was like his radio show, and he said that TreVeyon Henderson is back full go this week, and I think that that's huge. Now Ryan Day also mentioned Dallan Hayden playing this week too, so I think if we see a running back duo of TreVeyon Henderson and Dallan Hayden, that could potentially be the best combination of running backs on this team. A lot of people have talked about Dallan as being running back one, and I've always stood on that TreVeyon Henderson is easily the best running back on this team. I think that it will show this weekend. I think that TreVeyon Henderson will end up with like 19 or 20 carries in this game. And I'm going to say that Trey goes over 150 yards. I think that they want to feature him. They want to get him back into the mix. And as long as he doesn't get hurt or anything like that, because obviously he was injured, I think that he has a big game. He breaks a couple. And I don't think the Wisconsin defense is super great at stopping the run. I'll get into some of that here in a little bit. But that's my first hot take is Trey over 150 yards. And Evan said we need Trey to eat. Yeah, man. And listen, the run game has been a problem for Ohio State. It was pretty good against Purdue with Dallan Hayden out there, and the offensive line was dominating. But the one thing about TreVeyon Henderson is that he hasn't had the opportunity to play since Ohio State's offensive line has kind of gelled and started playing some better football. Early on in the year when Trey was playing, the offensive line was a little out of whack. They were making a lot of changes in spring and in fall camp. They were making changes to like who's playing left tackle, right tackle, all that good stuff. And then they've still had they still had a center battle going on with Carson Hinsman and Vic Cutler, the guy who transferred in. So there was a lot of shifting. There was a lot of things going on. The offensive line didn't really gel early, but Trey hasn't played since they've started playing their best football. So I think that in a game like this where the offensive line is starting to hit their stride, TreVeyon Henderson is going to go absolutely nuts. And again, like I said, over 150 yards from him tomorrow. The next one I want to go into a little bit of context about. So it's a kind of a simple prediction. The prediction is Carnell Tate has a touchdown. Okay, but I have a reason for this that I think is a little more complex. So if you remember when Ohio State had Justin Fields, Garrett Wilson, and Chris Olave, they would run like seam routes a lot and then do back shoulder throws, right? So you would have the receiver just run a seam route, and then instead of like trying to throw it over top of the defender who was playing inside leverage, they would make a back shoulder throw, and ultimately that's almost impossible to defend for a defender, right? Well, Ohio State tried to get back to some of that last week, playing against Penn State, and they were using Carnell Tate to do that. I saw, I think, maybe 2 or 3 times where Kyle tried to make that throw to Carnell Tate. Now, the problem why they didn't complete those was that Kyle was just a little bit off on the throws and wasn't putting them far enough on the back shoulder to allow that receiver to create separation just by catching the ball. I think that they're going to work on that this week, and I think that's going to work. I think that Carnell Tate will catch a touchdown pass, and I'm going to kind of narrow it down and say Carnell Tate will catch a touchdown pass on a seam route that is a back shoulder throw, and I think that he'll go up and get it and bring it down for a touchdown. So that's my second prediction. And then moving on to my third one, the rest of these are going to be about the defense because I think the defense is going to kind of dominate this game. It's where I've been at with them all year. Is I think they're going to dominate pretty much everybody, and I think that they might end up even dominating Michigan because I think if Michigan doesn't know what they're doing, I think J.J. McCarthy is going to be a little lost. He'll make some plays, but he'll make a lot of mistakes too. All right, but anyway, moving on to this prediction. I think the defense is going to hold Braylon Allen to less than 60 yards. So Braylon Allen is currently averaging 5.9 yards per carry, 700 yards so far this year, 8 touchdowns. I mean, he's always been a really good running back ever since he started in college. Wisconsin does run a little bit different of an offense this year, where they throw the ball a little bit more, they spread things out a little bit more, but they still run a lot out of that package. So they're going to be looking to get a lot of carries out of Braylon Allen, but I think that this defense is going to bottle him up. I think that having guys like Sonny Styles out there, Cody Simon should have a big game, Tommy Eichenberg, and then the defensive line playing the way they've been playing. I think that's going to present some problems for Braylon Allen. And I'll tell you what, that's going to actually segue me into my next bold prediction. So number 4, Sonny Styles. I think that Sonny Styles is going to finish this game with 3 impact plays. And when I say impact plays, I'm talking like sack, interception, tackle for loss, forced fumble, fumble recovery, right? That's basically all that you could really consider an impact play. I think Sonny's going to get 3 in this game. I think that he'll get something like maybe he'll end up having 2 sacks and an interception, or a TFL, a sack, and an interception, or something like that. I think that this is the exact type of game where he can really shine, and he should be playing a lot because I don't think this Wisconsin team really presents too much of a threat in terms of throwing the ball down the field. They don't really have those small, shifty kind of receivers that would ultimately force Sonny Styles off the field. I think he'll play a lot, and I think that he will go off. I agree with you, Evan. There's really no reason Sonny should be off the field. And honestly, like, if it was causing problems for the defense, I would kind of be a little more up in arms about the way they do things. But when they do take Sonny Styles off the field and they put Jordan Hancock out there instead, I mean, the defense is still really, really fucking good, dude. So, I mean, Jordan Hancock is a baller, and he's one of them dudes who, like, he's not afraid to hit people. He's not afraid to come up and run support, and he's really good in coverage. So, you know, again, when they take Sonny off the field, I hate it because I want to see him out there making plays. But I think that in this game, he will be on the field more often than not. And I think that having him out there is going to have a huge impact. Like I said, he'll have 3 impact plays. And then getting into my last hot take, I think the defense is going to create a lot of pressure in this game. I think that they end up getting 4 sacks in this game. So last week against Penn State, I think they got 4 also. Yeah, because they had one from last week. You had one from JT Tuimoloau, one from Sonny Styles, one from Kenyatta Jackson, and one from Caden Curry. So 4 sacks. I think they'll get 4 sacks at least in this game. And I'm going to say that uh, 2 of those sacks are going to come from Kenyatta Jackson. I think that he's ready for a real breakout game. And that kid is also a freak athlete. I hope they continue giving him more and more reps. One thing I like is that they let him talk at the podium when they did interviews this week. Usually when Ohio State puts players out there and lets them talk on the podium, that means that player is going to be making a bigger impact as the season goes on. They don't typically just put guys up there who are just strictly backups. So I expect to see Kenyatta Jackson out there more often. And unfortunately, that is going to mean that Jack Sawyer is going to come off the field. I'm a fan of Jack Sawyer, but he has a lot of really bad film on tape, and I think that he needs just one more year to develop, which makes sense because he kind of lost a year of development playing the Jack role that he should have never been in, right? So, again, 2 sacks from Kenyatta Jackson, 4 overall for Ohio State in this game. And then that was it for my hot takes or my bold predictions segment. I just want to talk a little bit more about this game and kind of what I expect the game flow to be. And then I'll give my score prediction for the game and wrap the show up. So, again, just kind of getting into the game flow. I expect for... Here, hold on. Let me see what Evan has to say here. Yep. Yeah, and Evan, I agree with you, man. What I usually say, Jack is a really good run stopper. The problem is just he has too many plays on film where he's a whole second behind everybody else coming off the ball, and that's just something that you can't do regardless. But they put him out there against Notre Dame for the entire game, and they did that for a reason. They did that because they were not worried about getting a pass rush on Sam Hartman. They just wanted to keep him in the pocket, and they wanted to stop the run. Jack Sawyer is good for that. So is JT Tuimoloau. I just think that having that mixture of a pure pass rusher and a phenomenal run stopper on the field at the same time is the right mixture. And I think that with JT Tuimoloau, you get both. And then with a guy like Kenyatta Jackson, I think you get a really good pass rusher who I've seen him continue to get better and better throughout the year at stopping the run. So, yeah, that's kind of where I'm at with that. All right, so getting into some of the game flow stuff, I expect for Ohio State to come out early and actually have a good start to the game. It's something that they haven't really been doing. They haven't been having good first quarters. They haven't been having good first halves. But I think that Ryan Day knows that needs to change. And I think the defense is going to come out firing. I think that I could see a turnover within Wisconsin's first 2 drives, honestly. I think that they haven't seen a defense like Ohio State's. And they want to throw the ball a lot. If they come out throwing the ball, they're going to throw an interception. It's going to happen. I don't see their quarterback being accurate enough or having good enough timing to really get throws off on Ohio State. And I think that our DBs have been ready to jump stuff all year and take it to the house. So, again, I think that the defense is going to come out and kind of dominate the game early, and I think they give up a little bit of points late, right? So once the game is kind of a little bit out of hand, they start lightening up a little bit. They start switching out some guys, putting in some backups, and then the defense at that point will probably give up a little bit of points. And they may give up a few points throughout the early parts of the game too, like maybe a 3, maybe 1 touchdown, something like that. But I don't think that Wisconsin gets over 10 points in this game. That's just where I'm at with it. I don't see an offense over there that really threatens. That's really going to be able to threaten this defense. Now, the only thing I can see happening is I could see Ohio State's offense having a turnover or a special teams blunder that will ultimately allow Wisconsin to get some points. But I don't know, man. I think that Ryan Day is kind of buckling down on that too, and he's like, look, we need to get this offense right because it's time to enter championship level now. And that's what I expect from this Ohio State team this weekend is I expect to see a championship-type team out there. They don't have to be that. If they're not a championship-looking team, I'm not going to freak out because I know that they could still get there. But about this time of the year is when you want to start hitting your stride. And Ryan Day knows that. He's talked about it all year. We want to be playing our best football late in the year, which I think this Ohio State team has yet to play their best football. And that's why I think my score prediction for this game is going to be, I'm going to say 45-10. I think that's what it's going to turn out. I think Ohio State's defense could end up scoring a touchdown to aid the offense and get into that 45 because I'm not completely sold on the offense being able to put up 45 points on their own. But when you're in a game with a team like Wisconsin, who is not like they used to be, where they would kind of play keep away with the ball, they're going to try to make plays, and it's either going to create turnovers, it's going to create fast stops for the defense, or they're going to score points. So, again, I think that this offense is going to have a ton of opportunities this weekend, and I think that they'll capitalize on them a little more than what they usually do because, like I said, I think that Ryan Day is entering his final, okay, it's time for us now to dial this up. It's time for us to be a championship team, and it's time for us to go out here and win a national championship. And I still think that this is the ceiling for that team, or for this Ohio State team. So I'm going to wrap it up there. Again, final score prediction, 45-10. Ohio State gets a big dub. I'll be back live on Monday morning to talk about what we saw this weekend, whatever kind of updates happen with the Michigan scandal shit, and then we'll go from there. As always, guys, like the video, hit the subscribe button, all that good stuff, and come back for more content next week. Peace out, and you guys have a great day.